Hi, everyone. I'm Christine Shupla. I'm the Education and Public Engagement Manager at the Lunar and Planetary Institute, and I have the privilege of working with NASA at my library, and we're delighted to be working on these videos to help people with STEAM strategies for NASA at my library.
Good afternoon. My name is Susan Rolfsmeyer. I work at Shadron Public Library in northwestern Nebraska, and I am the assistant director here at the library, and I mostly do adult programming, but I collaborate with youth services to do family programs, especially in science.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sherelle Webb. I'm the Public Engagement Lead at the Lunar and Planetary Institute.
My name is Leah Larson. I work at State Library Services of Minnesota, and I'm a consultant for teen and school services.
So I have to admit that I do struggle with those questions, because I think my first reaction is, okay, I know this isn't correct, but how are we going to solve this with a little bit of graciousness? And how can I help them get the information they need without, talking too much? Sometimes I find that if I know in advance with the activity, the kinds of misconceptions there might be, I might have some props. I really love models. I think models help. Maybe I don't always have those handy though. So I found sometimes asking my own questions back and seeing if maybe by asking not so much leading questions, but try to get at what's underneath helps a little bit.
Yes, I think that over the course of my career, I probably heard more wrong responses to questions than right responses, especially when we're getting into science and the kind of subject matter where there really are right and wrong answers. And I like to say, oh, that is close, but actually, and then give the right answer. Or sometimes I like to say, if there's like a part of the answer that's correct that I can latch onto, like say I said, what planet would you like to visit? And somebody said, oh, I'd like to visit the sun. I could say, oh, actually, the sun is part of our solar system, but it's actually not a planet, it's a star. Some of the planets are. And then to do something like that to kind of highlight the right part of their answer or where they're getting close to the facts, but then kind of redirect.
Because oftentimes if someone else is really shy and doesn't want to ask a question, I ask those questions too, even if I know the answer, even if it seems like a naive question, especially if I have kids. I think that being able to ask questions is just as useful as being able to answer questions, maybe more so.
So since space is so huge, and it can be really difficult for people to grasp things, all the objects in space, but also just the distances in space and what's part of what's part of the solar system or the galaxy or the universe. People get these things confused, and they get the terms confused. So one thing I like to do is use analogies to help a little bit with this. If the whole library was a universe, then it's made up, it's got a lot of books in it, right? So each book is a different galaxy. And so the universe of the library is made up of lots of books, galaxies, and each book is a galaxy. And our solar system is just one word in one book in the whole library. And so that would be an analogy I might use to explain solar system being just this tiny little thing.
Yeah, I think that objects in space can get a little bit confusing for people just because they're not something that they've seen firsthand. So I think that sometimes the difference between a moon and a planet and a sun are kind of the most common ones I'm thinking, but also comets and asteroids. And I think there's all kinds of confusion when it comes to what kind of objects are out there and what the defining characteristics of those objects are.
Really all about that abstract thinking. So because I understand is abstract, I have to give them a visual. And so you could talk to your blue in the face, but without them being able to see to connect, there's gonna be, there's still gonna be some disconnect there. So I definitely believe that visuals are best when we're talking about space. Now, not saying that all of those are to scale, and you want to put that disclaimer out there, but providing visuals, I think helps too. that connection.
Great point. Great point. So visuals and activities can help us as well, right?
Absolutely.
And the activity that I'm thinking of particular for this one to help in terms of visuals is one that has to do with making a pinwheel out of a paper galaxy. And so is there some way that you would start off the activity? What sort of discussions would you hold with the kids, with the adults, whoever you're doing the activity with, just to get them ready for the activity, just to kind of access that prior knowledge that they might have already?
You would definitely start, I believe, to ask them, well, do they know the name of our galaxy? Have they heard of our galaxy? Did they even know that we reside in, I would just start the conversation with anything, like doing a brain dump, like, what do you know about this word galaxy and how it relates to us? Just to kind of get some thoughts going.
I think I'd like to talk to them a little bit about the night sky and what they've seen when they look into the night sky. And of course, they're going to say stars, but then I think that I'd like to see if I can get any of them to see maybe if they've seen a planet or a meteor shower or the northern lights or anything else to kind of get them to start thinking about what is up there in space when they look into the night sky.
What sort of ideas do you think the patrons might have about where our galaxy could be? If you ask this question for the patrons, Leah, what sorts of answers do you think they might have?
Well, I have a feeling that depending on the age group, they might think that our solar system is right at the center of it because, especially at that age, we tend to think we're at the center of everything.
I tend to agree with Leah that people will find, themselves at the center of things. I was actually thinking about illustrating where we are. I used to have a t-shirt that I wore all the time, and it has a picture of a galaxy with an arrow on it that says you are here. And I think, Sherelle talked about how important images are. I really think this is a great place to kind of have a picture of some kind, whether it's on a screen or just a drawing like a map with a little "you are here," to give people a sense of place.
This is an opportunity, this activity is an opportunity to have the kids talk about where our solar system is compared to what our galaxy looks like and the difference between the two.
We're in a library, so I often take the opportunity when I get questions I don't know the answer to see if I can find the answer in the library, and use it as an opportunity to learn how to use the resource a little bit better.
So we've had some really wonderful strategies here on how we can deal with helping our patrons understand content and how we ourselves can be prepared to do that, to help them with books and resources, with experts, bringing in outside experts to share their knowledge, using posters, using visuals, using the activity itself to help demonstrate things. So we've got a lot of great strategies here to prepare ourselves and to come up with, as you mentioned, some questions in advance. What questions do we think they might ask that we might be prepared to answer?